제공되고 있습니다. 한국어는 1번, 영어는 2번입니다. 자리에 놓인 수신기를 사용해 주시면 되고요. 줌으로 참가하고 계시는 온라인 참석자 분들께서는 플랫폼에서 원하시는 언어를 선택하시면 됩니다. 그럼 잠시 후 10시 30분에 뵙겠습니다. 감사합니다. 네, 안녕하십니까. 2021년 제5차 유네스코 학습도시 국제회의에 오신 여러분 환영합니다. 저는 오늘 대학 세션 사회를 맡은 아나운서 원현정입니다. 반갑습니다. 네, 오늘 대학 세션은요, 국내 전문가분들을 모시고 대학과 또 평생 교육에 관련한 이야기 들어보는 자리인데요. 온라인 참석자분들께서는 질문이 있으시면 실시간으로 줌 채팅방에 올려주시면 되고요. 현장 참석자분들께서는 질문 내용을 잘 기억하시거나 메모해 두셨다가 현장에서 질문해 주시면 되겠습니다. 그럼 본격적인 세션을 앞두고 본 행사 좌장을 소개 올릴 텐데요. 이호철 인천대학교 부총장님께서 수고해 주시겠습니다. 그럼 마이크를 부총장님께 넘기겠습니다. 부총장님.
예, 여러분 반갑습니다. 소개받은 인천대학교 대외부총장 이호철 교수입니다. 오늘 그 유네스코가 주관하는 그 러닝 시티 학습 도시에 관한 국제 회의를 우리 연수구에서 유치를 해서 오늘 이렇게 굉장히 중요한 회의를 개최하게 되었고 거기에 대학 세션의 그 진행을
And especially, I am honored to be the moderator of the university session at this conference.
주제와 관련된
In relation to the theme of today's session,
마스크를 쓰고 말씀을 드리겠습니다.
okay, so I will proceed with my mask on.
우리 이 세션 주제 대학 세션과 관련된 주제와 관련해서
In relation to the theme of the university
지역의
session,
그 전문가
we will be talking about
네 분을
the
모셨습니다.
theme with the four
우선
experts
그
in this field.
간단히
First of
소개를
all, I would like to
드리도록
introduce
하겠습니다.
our four speakers today.
가장 먼저 발표를
Our
해주실
first
분은
speaker is
한국외국어대학교
Hongchul Kim,
국제학부
Associate Professor of
교수님이시고
Hankuk University of
또
Foreign Studies.
외국어대학 내에서
And
EU 연구소를
also,
맡고 계시는
he is currently
김홍철
in
교수님을
charge of the
소개드리겠습니다.
EU Research Center at the Hankuk University of Foreign Studies.
그리고 다음으로 발표해 주실
And our
분은
second speaker is
그 인천 가톨릭 대학교
Professor of Incheon Catholic University, Seonyoung Yoon.
소개를 드리겠습니다.
Nice to meet you.
윤선영 교수님은
Professor Yoon Seonyoung,
무선 디자인 학과죠.
what was your specialty? It was the design, wasn't it?
융합 디자인.
Yes, convergence
융합
design.
디자인을
Yes, she's a professor of convergence design
어,
department at
그,
Incheon Catholic University.
헬스케어와
Also,
관련된
She has
전공을 하고
a specialty in healthcare. And today, I believe you will be presenting in this context. Well, that was my assumption, but maybe not. We will hear her soon. And
세 번째 발표를 하실 분은
our third speaker is
인천재능대학교의
Professor of Incheon National
교수님이십니다.
Incheon Chening University, Chu Mi Lee. Nice to meet you.
이주미 교수님은
Professor Chu Mi Lee is the director of the Incheon National University Lifelong Learning Center, and your specialty is
BT, 뷰티,
beauty.
전공 분야는
Yes, her specialty is beauty.
뷰티를 전공해서 그런지 교수님 굉장히 뷰티하세요.
And you look very beautiful. I can see that
그리고
your
네 번째
specialty is beauty.
마지막
And last but
발표자는
not least, we have
제가 있는 우리 인천대학교
professor at Incheon
그
National
창의
University, where I am
인재학과에
also a
계시는
professor. So we have
박용호
Professor Young-ho
교수입니다.
Park of Incheon
박용호
National
교수님
University. He is in the Creative
그
HR
제가
Development Department.
과장을 맡는 일로 인해서 박용호 교수님께서 이
So I've been
세션을
assigned as the moderator of this session,
수고를
and
많이 해주셨습니다.
I know that
이 자리에
Professor Park
참석해
worked really
주셔서.
hard to prepare for his
그러면
presentation in this session. So I
그
appreciate
발표를
all of your
진행하도록
hard work that
하겠습니다.
went
아마
into
우리
today's
사전에
presentations. And
양해가 되셨을 텐데 아마
as
10분
you have
정도
heard in
시간을
advance, I believe that
갖도록
each of the
진행하도록 하겠습니다.
presentation will be assigned
먼저
about
김
10
교수님
minutes in time. So
발언
Professor
듣겠습니다.
Kim, would you please go first?
방금
Okay,
소개를 받은 한국외고대학교의
I am Professor Pongchul
정원입니다.
Kim. As I was just
오늘
introduced, I'm
이
professor at
자리에
Hankuk
초청을 해주셔서
University of Foreign Studies.
감사드리고요.
Thank you very much for
또
your invitation
우리
today.
대학 한국외고대학교가 가지고 있는 특성을
I'd like to talk about the characteristics of our university HOFs and how we can reflect that to Incheon region for further cooperation. And I believe this is a good opportunity for that discussion. Today I'm going to talk about the revitalization of global citizenship education with university local government cooperation. Well, the global citizenship education is a hot topic these days, so how we can facilitate and revitalize that education would be the focus of my presentation today. First of all, I'd like to talk about the concept of global citizenship education. I'm not going to discuss about the concept in detail. Of course, that's not the purpose of this session. But when the university and the region want to cooperate together, we have to consider what the global citizenship education is. So I'd like to briefly talk about that. When we say global citizenship education, was actually it actually started from 2015 when there was UNESCO World Education Forum here in Incheon. So at the time, there was a discussion on the future education. So there was an agreement on the future citizenship education should be the education for all. So that was announced here in Incheon at the UNESCO Forum. So for the next 15 years, starting from 2015, so that would be until 2030. So all international organizations, countries, and civic groups, and other actors of education should be considered as a group of citizens rather than a separate groups. So that was the declaration was made in 2015. It is called Incheon Declaration. At the time in Incheon, we made a declaration saying that we have to practice global citizenship education. That was a commitment made by all the participants. After that, the international society has continuously made efforts to practice the concept of Incheon Declaration, and we are now here in Incheon again. When we say global citizenship education, it is an education that pursues the values that are universal for humanities, and it is also about overcoming the modern national citizenship and embrace a new concept of a global citizenship. So as a member of an international society, we should share knowledge together, and we should share our insight in about the problems that we face. So compared to the past, the pursuit of national interest and national citizenship would be decreased, and we value more of the international citizenship. If you see the details, there are different sectors. Of course, scholars have different views or different concepts, but overall, Rather than pursuing one interest of one country, we should pursue interest for everyone, for coexistence, and for the future for all. So that's the interest that, or the values that we should pursue according to the global citizenship education. Rather than talking about the details of global citizenship education, I'd like to talk about what we should do to facilitate this education. First, who should perform this education and where and how we should perform this education. After the Incheon Declaration, many education actors and recipient of education start to think about this. Of course, the discussion continues even now and it will continue in the future as well. But the theme of today's session is about cooperation between the region and the universities or schools. So let's narrow it down and talk about the need for global citizenship in school education. In school education, the concept of global citizenship education should be reflected. And first of all, we should cultivate the concept of global citizenship education. Rather than belonging to a one nation, we are now belonging to a whole international society, so we should have that concept and we should be aware that we are a member of the global community. So the responsibility for everyone as a global citizen should be something that we have to pursue rather than pursuing one national interest. And we should pursue value that could benefit everyone around the world and pursue a direction that is for the good for everyone in the world. So that should be the direction of our education of global citizenship. Another thing we should consider is that as the modern society continuously develop, we are in the era of the fourth industrial revolution. So everything has changed. If you consider about 100 years ago and the way people thought, it's going to be completely different from how it is now. Same for the global citizenship education. We have to come up with a method that is suitable for the current era, and we should also set a goal in line with that as well. The most important area would be IT, information and telecommunication technology. Also through network and online, we become closer to each other. That's the era we live in. So we have to utilize all of these technologies or methods, and with that result, we should pursue another round of development of the global citizenship education. In order to do that, region and the schools within the region should actively cooperate with each other. Sometimes schools have to be hub, or other times region should be the hub to spread information from schools within the region to other regions. Of course, schools will have their own network with other schools so they can share information with each other to lead the spread of global citizenship education. Now let's talk about global citizenship education through school-region cooperation. How can a region and universities can actively cooperate with each other and can coexist with each other for mutual cooperation, for mutual prosperity? What I'd like to talk about today is I'm going to focus only on global citizenship education when it comes to cooperation between the two actors. So I've titled this as School Region Cooperative Type Global Citizenship Education. So after 2015, many schools or universities at regional level have pursued global citizenship education, and they're still doing it. For instance, they have a faculty training program for global citizenship education. So
교사들을 양성하는
They
프로그램.
are fostering or
그다음에
cultivating teachers who can teach global citizenship education.
프로그램은
Generally,
정말 다양한
however, the global
방식으로
citizenship education is
학교별로
being
또
performed
전공부처
at
그리고
various
코이카와
level.
같은
The
부처에서도 다양하게
universities,
하고 있죠.
the government,
근데 이제
or other
문제점은
organizations such as
여러분들이
COICA are
세계 시민
offering global citizenship
교육이라고 하는
education.
개념을 공유하고 있지만
But although they
방식과
share
또
the concept of
내용과
global
또
citizenship
목적
education, but when it
지향이
comes to the
형식을 다소가
method
다르다라는
or the
점을 우리가
details or the
기억할 필요가
concept
있겠습니다.
or the
세계 시민
purpose are all different.
교육을 이제 수행함에 있어서
In
그
offering global
지역을
citizenship
좀 더
education,
관심을 두고 조금 더 지역과 밀착하는
there
방식이 무엇이 있겠는가?
I wanted to
이제
know what
이건
would
뭐
be the
제
method to
전문 분야는
focus more on the
아니지만
region. Of
지역
course, this is not my
기반에서
specialty,
이야기하는
but
개념이 있습니다.
there is a
Community
concept called
based learning
community-based
이렇게 부르는
learning, so it's called the
CBL
CBL.
약자로 부르기도 합니다. 세계 시민 교육을 수행함에 있어서
In
지역
offering global citizenship
밀착성, 지역
education,
기반형 학습이 매우
community-based
필요하다고
learning
생각을
is
합니다.
absolutely necessary.
세계 시민, 우리 모두 세계
It is
시민인데
because we are all
그것만
global
강조하면
citizens, and if we
가끔은 우리가
emphasize
현실성으로
just
떨어질 때가
that,
있습니다.
sometimes
우리가 알고
remove
있는
reality from
지역에서
the education. We live
우리가
in a
그
region,
지역을
in a local
구성원으로서
community, and as
또
a member of
한편으로는
the local
세계
community, and
구성원으로서
at the same time, as a global
두
citizen,
가지의
how we
다른
can
트랙을 융합시키고 조화시킬 수
converge
있겠는가
or fuse the
이것을
two
스스로가
different tracks.
고민하게끔 만들어주는
We
것이
have to
진정한
allow the
지역
student
밀착성,
to
지역
think about that
기반의 세계 시민
themselves. So the
교육이다라고 할 수
community-based
있겠습니다.
learning would be useful for global
많은
citizenship
방식이
education.
추구하고 진행되고 있고요.
There are so
또
many different methods of
수없이 많은
teaching
고민들이 또
pursued,
이루어지고
and
있습니다.
there are so many different thoughts put
이
into place.
과정에서
And in the
한국형 세계
process,
시민
Korean
교육이다라는
style
개념을 제가
global
조금 이야기하고
citizenship
싶은데요.
education
지역
is something that I'd like to
학습센터라든지
talk about.
또 뭐 각국 지역
Local
단위의 학습
learning
클럽이라든지
centers or learning clubs
우리
in a
사회에 정말
region.
많은 크고 작은 도서관들이 있잖아요.
And there are
이제
so
이런
many
모든
libraries in our
조직체들을
country in
결합시키면서
different sizes. If we
네트워크를
can combine
구성하면서
all of these
세계 시민 교육의 개념을 공유하면서
institutions
교육을
to
한다면
make a
좀 더
network to share
일관되게
information and
지역
knowledge,
기반의
then we can provide more coherent
다른 그런 그 세계 시민
and a
교육이
local-based
가능하지
and
않을까 하는
community-based
생각을 합니다.
global citizenship education will be possible.
학교라고 말씀을 드렸는데 범위를 이제
I
조금 더 좁혀서
mentioned about schools so far. Now let's narrow it down and talk mainly about university.
세계 시민 교육을 함에 있어서 대학은
In global citizenship education, what kind of role can universities can play? Of course, there could be various different ways. They can include the course in their curriculum, or as the extra curriculum, they can offer a global citizenship education.
물론 이제 저 이후에 많은
Of course,
교수님들께서
after me, there will be three different professors.
평생교육
They will talk about lifelong education, and I want to connect lifelong education with the global citizenship education. Considering the characteristics of Incheon as a region, we can talk about Yeonsu city, for instance, or Songdo area to narrow it down further. The geographical, industrial characteristics and the population should be considered. And if we consider that in designing our global citizenship education, I think we can reflect the needs of the local people. On the other hand, I believe that it will give us opportunity to think about how important it would be to connect the education with the regional needs. All the professors except me are members of universities settled in Incheon region. If we narrow it down further to Yeonsu area or Songdo, we can think about the different characteristics of different region and different characteristics of different universities. So if we pursue a global citizenship education at the different levels, that would be useful. For instance, we call Songdo as international city. Many foreign residents work here. There are so many foreign companies and international organizations or international universities are in Songdo area. If we combine those networks and share information among them, then we can upgrade the global citizenship education. For instance, I am the professor at Hankuk University of Foreign Studies. As you may know, my university offers various courses for different foreign languages and various social science programs as well. For decades, Hankuk University of Foreign Studies has offered various courses in relation to the foreign language studies. But considering the current situation, my university is facing some crisis. So the characteristics and features of Hankuk University of Foreign Studies can be connected to regional characteristics to have more exponential effect. For the international studies, I believe that would be useful for both the university and the region. Of course, this may not have a close relations with the global citizenship education, but there are similar programs that were offered by local universities. So, for instance, global culture education program.
억지로 세계 시민 교육과 연결지어 볼 수도 있겠지만 사실
Of
엄밀히
course, I
말씀드리면
can try to connect it with the global citizenship education,
직접적으로
but
맞닿지는 못하고 있다.
I don't believe this is directly
볼 수 있겠습니다.
related
이걸
to
발전을
global
시켜야
citizenship
되는데요.
education.
제가
So
오늘
we have to
말씀드린
develop it
것보다는
further to make a stronger
그런
connection.
제안입니다.
So I'd like to make a small
2015년에 있었던
proposal.
인천 선언.
We had an Incheon
세계 시민
Declaration in
교육을
2015
그것을
to facilitate global
모든
citizenship
교육에
education and
접목시켜보자라는
to
인천
combine it
선언을
to all
조금 더
educations.
업그레이드하고
So
또
how about we
적용하기
upgrade the
위해서
Incheon
대학과
Declaration and
지자체가
apply it to other
어떻게
sectors?
협력할
And
것인지
we should think about
작은
how
제안을
can
드리자면
region and the
기존의
university can
대학이
cooperate with
가지고
each
있었던
other.
여러 가지 기능들을
There are various
다시 한번
features that
생각해 볼 필요가
universities
있습니다.
already had, and we have to reinterpret
또
those
사람이
roles.
바뀌면
The time has
대학에도
changed, and
바뀌고
people
바뀌어야
change
된다고
as well,
생각하고
and the
그렇게
university
하기
should
위해서
change in
대학
line
스스로가
with those changes.
변화하고
So
또
universities
스스로가
should pursue changes
접목해야
themselves,
된다고
and they
생각합니다.
should transform
그중에 가장
themselves.
중요한 포인트는
The
그
most
지역의
important
그
factor
지역에 이제
in the
그
process
뿌리 내리고 있는 그 대학의 모습을
is that
지역과 훨씬 더
the
조화롭게
universities
만들어야 됩니다.
should create more
아까
harmonious
말씀드렸던 4차 산업
relation with the local
또
communities. We are in the fourth
최근에
industrial
그
revolution era, as I
코로나
mentioned,
특수한 상황
and with the current pandemic,
대학들에게도 많은 변화를 요구하는 그 자극제입니다.
are
변할
requiring
수밖에 없는
so many
것이고요.
different changes to universities. So
그래서
they are working as a
지역에
catalyst.
있는
So
대학들이
regional
그
universities
지역과 조금 더
and the
밀착해서
regions
특성을 반영하는 그런 것들이
should
필요합니다.
cooperate with each other, and universities should closely reflect the characteristics of the local community as well. Universities have a capacity for research and education, so the university should share that capacity with the local communities. So people talk about sharing economy a lot these days. So we have to strengthen the function of universities to share their knowledge with the local community. For universities, the local government should also closely cooperate with universities for global citizenship education. So for the education, they reflect the local government, the characteristics of the local government, and the local government should closely cooperate with the universities. So that's something that I'd like to ask for the local governments. Then how can the local governments and the universities cooperate with each other? They can make a linkage. If you consider their intersections, and this is my last point, Incheon-style university, and then global citizenship education for Incheon-style university should be pursued. So I named this as Incheon City Global Citizenship Education Center can be established here in Incheon. There is a international education center of HOFs here in Songdo. So maybe we can pull our strengths together to create this Global Citizenship Education Center here in Incheon. For that, we should communicate with the local government a lot and discuss with the local government a lot to realize the local-friendly global citizenship education center. And we can also create consultation council, which could be the secretary of the education, to create a cluster so that regional universities, other universities can cooperate with each other so that we can realize the real regional global citizenship education. So that's a small model that I'd like to propose. Thank you very much.
김
Yes,
교수님 감사드립니다.
Professor Kim, thank you very much.
그 개항의 역사를 안고 있는 인천.
Incheon has a history of universities. Also, Incheon is also the gate to the Republic of Korea. So, compared to any other cities, I believe the topic of his presentation was more necessary for our city. Especially Songdo is international city, and Yeonsu, who is the home to Songdo. So I believe the presentation was necessary for our region. One of the global citizenship education could be one of the important contents of the lifelong education. So thank you very much. Next presenter.
Our next presenter is Professor Yoon Sun-young. Hello, I am Yoon Sun-young, Professor of Convergence Design Department at Incheon Catholic University. Also, I teach healthcare design at the university. Now, please allow me to begin my presentation. Today, I would like to discuss the cooperation between universities and municipalities for resilience in cities. And I would like to focus my presentation on the cooperation between Bupyeonggu District of Incheon City and Incheon Catholic University. So in the previous presentation, we heard about communication-based learning, and I believe that my presentation also touches on the same context. These are the topics that I will cover today. I will talk about the background, the objective, our project, as well as the implications of this project. First of all, I will explain the background and objective of this project. The project that I will discuss today is called 500 Safe Steps for Women. So this was a project that was implemented in residential districts with poor safety in Bupyeonggu District of Incheon City. So our aim was to improve the residential environment in order to enable the so-called CPTED, or crime prevention through environmental designs. So we focused on the small alleys in residential areas through cooperation between Bupyeonggu District Office, Police Station, Incheon Catholic University, and the residents to bring about concrete accomplishments for the women living in these poor safety areas. In addition to ensuring safety in residential areas, we wanted to boost and bring cohesiveness to the community by fostering and nurturing village leaders so that we will be able to actually maintain and manage this project in the long term. The name of this project is 500 Safe Steps for Women. So this name may feel a little unfamiliar to you. Let me explain to you how this works. So on average, it takes women 500 steps to go from a bus station or a public facility to the end of the village. So they basically have to walk 500 steps on average to walk home from the bus station or a public facility. And we wanted to make all those 500 safe steps safe for women, and also we wanted not just women but all residents to feel safe when they are walking in the neighborhood. This project was inaugurated in 2013, so this year marks the 8th year. Every year we designate one village and we focus on the improvement of the environment in narrow alleys. We establish environmental improvement plans and we put these plans in place. So this project is something that is currently in progress. 500 Safe Steps for Women. Now, there are 3 main directions in this project. Number 1, stronger safety. Number 2, better environment. And number 3, stronger community. Now, under strong safety, we have activities like installing CCTVs or street lamps, emergency bells, crime prevention covers, and also covering the alleys with fluorescent paint in order to prevent nighttime crimes. And also to improve the environment, we pave the roads with non-slip non-slippery paving, and we also design the murals so that the neighborhood looks cleaner and neater. And also to achieve a stronger community, we put names on different streets and alleys, and also we design logos, characters, signages, safety maps, bulletins, and door plates and rest areas so that the people will feel a sense of attachment to their community and we can bring more cohesiveness among the residents. As part of this project, Bupyeonggu District Office's Women and Facility Services Division cooperated with Bupyeonggu Police Station, the residents in these districts, and Incheon Catholic University. This illustrates the role of each entity. First of all, Women and Family Services Department of Bupyeonggu District is basically the main player in the project. It serves as a channel for communication. And the police station is specialized in safety and crime prevention. And also through CPTED, it is playing various different roles. Incheon Catholic University, where I work, me as well as my students develop the designs. In this process, the students get to experience cooperation and communication with many different entities in the project, and they can also be trained as real designers. As for the residents are involved in every single stage. They are basically the main actors of this project, and they are the main beneficiaries of this project, so they play an important role in directing the project. In terms of the community-based learning, they can teach other and they can actually boost the sense of community among themselves. This shows the process of the project. First of all the players come together and visit subject areas or candidate areas to do a survey, and then we have a talk with the residents to identify the issues that are felt by the residents as well as their pain points. And also, these residents put up a vote, and then they decide on the name of the road or the street in the village. And then based on this name of the street, we do the design work, and then we report the design to the residents, and we get opinions from them and feedbacks from them. Based on that, we make adjustments, and then the final outcomes are actually implemented by the Bupyeonggu District Office or the police station. And also, we have volunteer work by the residents who implement our designs in the actual streets. And then after these designs have been implemented, the residents as well as the district office play a role in managing and maintaining these designs. I would like to tell you about some of the specific designs that we have implemented. In 2017, Sipjeong was the subject area. So Sipjeong means that it has 10 wells, and we wanted to take advantage of this meaning. So we basically put a name on the street called Star Well Street, and we use these special characters of an asterisk and a sharp to indicate the star and the well. So these special characters illustrate how special this village is, and we implemented non-slippery paving on the street heading to the park so that a lot of the villagers and residents can find their way to the park more easily, and also they feel happier when they're walking to the park. Also, we installed rest areas and bulletins and door plates so that this village could really feel like a community, and the resident representatives played a key role here. In 20 Yes. Next, in 2018, we worked on Sipjeong-2dong, which is a village right next to Sipjeong-1dong. Again, this village is known for having 10 wells. That's the meaning behind the name. So we named this street Passion Well. So this word passion actually has a double meaning. It means that the villagers are passionate and also they have empathy. This village has a lot of multicultural families, so we prioritize communication and safety for them. Multicultural families may have linguistic difficulties in the communication, so we actually put up these signages about how to dispose of the garbage or how to call the district help center using simple language and simple designs. In 2019, we worked on Puge Samdong village. This is actually a village resided by many middle and high school students. Compared to other villages in Incheon City, the average age of residents is quite low. And therefore, we wanted to create a young and fresh image for this village. So we named this street 새솔길, which means a street with bird wind. If you look at the design here, we have illustrations for the pinwheel to illustrate the sense of the wind. And residents all the way from middle and high school students to senior students participated in this work. And we had volunteer work where residents came forward to paint the murals on the walls. We had active engagement from the residents, which again was an example of community-based learning. And also this was a case of action learning because it really engaged the activities of the residents. And last year in 2020, we worked on Galsan Wondong. If you look at this alley, there are actually quite a lot of bars and nightlife establishments. So you have a mix of mom and pop stores and nightlife establishments in this alley. Galsan was inspired by a phrase in Korea, Galsan Myeongwol, which basically means bright moonlight. So we wanted to illustrate that meaning in the street name. So we called it Galsan Moonlight Street. This alley has a lot of nighttime establishments, so we set up signages for emergency calls and nighttime call centers for any people who needed help when they're walking in the street during the night. And also we painted the mural to make it brighter in terms of the ambience. And this was a way for the residents to feel a better sense of attachment for their community and their neighborhood. And in 2021, which is this year, we worked on Bukpyeong Samdong. This is actually a project that's in progress at the moment. Now, this street is near the subway station called Baegun, which means white cloud. And so this village has a mix of apartments and villas and detached houses, and it has a mix of different residents. So we named the street Flower Cloud Street, meaning that these residents all come together in a mix of clouds. So even yesterday, we met with the residents to do community service on painting the murals. We designed these signages so that it's easier for residents to find their way around the neighborhood, and also there are signages about no parking and other information. And this is basically a project that's still in progress. Now I have talked about several examples of the 500 Safe Steps for Women project. These are some of the implications. We were able to improve the environment of the neighborhood through cooperation between the district office, police station, Incheon Catholic University, and the residents. And in the process of implementing the project, we were able to have active exchanges of opinions between the government, university, and community. So it was not a unilateral project that was enforced by the government, but rather we had active communication with the residents. Also, each of the programs under the project are short-term. It lasts about 1 year. So we were able to actually see active exchanges and cooperation among the entities. And also we were able to actually see visible results and outcomes. Furthermore, we actually saw a decrease in the number of crimes. So this shows the effectiveness of this project. From the point of view of lifelong learning, we actively encourage the engagement of the residents so that they can take part in action learning as well as project-based learning. This allows us to nurture the village leaders, and also they can conceive themselves as the key players in their neighborhood. Also, the students can actually learn about the design and get real-life training through project-based learning, and this helps us nurture our future generation designers. Last but not least, in order for our project to go forward successfully, these are some of the directions that we have. In any project or in our project, especially, what's very important is to make sure it's not a one-off project, but that it can be a long-term project. So we nurture the village leaders, and we make sure that they can continue to communicate with the residents of the villages, and they can actually lead their community autonomously. And in this context, we shifted from simply installing or manufacturing facilities or equipment to actually developing programs and developing content in order to boost the function of lifelong learning. And even now, we have great cooperation among the players, but we encourage more engagement from the residents through continuous education so that they can have a higher awareness about the project. And also, we have different entities that are involved, so we need appropriate training and education for each of these entities. With that, I introduced how universities and a municipality can cooperate for resilience of a city. With that, I would like to conclude my presentation.
예, 윤선영 교수님 감사드립니다.
Thank you very much, Professor Yoon.
세 가지가 아마 제가 이해하기로는 핵심.
Hearing your presentation, I think there were three main keywords or three main ideas. When we think about community-based learning, this project seems to be very meaningful, and also community service for environmental improvement seems to be an important element in the project as well. This is basically an example of an activity-based learning, and I think Gupyeonggu District's 500 Safe Steps for Women project seems to be doing an excellent job on this front. Professor Yoon, maybe one day you could implement a similar project in Yeonsu-gu district of Incheon, and I think that the head of our municipality would really appreciate that. Thank you.
Next presenter is Professor Lee Joo-mi from Incheon Jeonning University. The floor is yours. Hello, I am Professor Lee Joo-mi. I'm director of Lifelong Education Institute at the Incheon Jeonning University. I'd like to talk about what kind of roles the Incheon University is playing for the restart of retirees in the local community and the cooperation with the local government. Rather than focusing on the research, I'd like to talk more about the actual examples. If you see the table of content, first I'd like to talk about our university. We have two campuses in Yeonsu district and Dong district. So depending on the region, I'd like to talk about the population of senior citizens and the needs, and I'd like to talk about the course that we provide for senior citizens. And lastly, I'm gonna tell you about the role of the Incheon Jeonning University in the local community. Excuse me, I actually skipped one page. First, let me explain about the background. The growth rate of Incheon city of the population is declining, but the number of population continuously increases. That's important. And the middle-aged and elderly population that are senior citizens continue to increase. Out of the total population, the rate of the middle-aged and elderly population is about 65% for Dong district, whereas 52% for Yeonsu district. So it's over 50%. So that's an important aspect of the population. So with the weekly work hours of 52 hours and with the increasing average life expectancy, number of senior citizens are wanting spare time activities, or there's the increasing number of population that want a re-employment after retirement. So let's talk about the population distribution in Incheon area. In 2018 until 2020, I compared the population in Dong district and Yeonsu district, an age group between 50 to 54, 55 to 59, and 60 to 64. You can see the whole groups increasing. So you can see that the number of population in these age groups is increasing. Next, spare time activities by type among senior citizens. Sports activities, entertainment, social activities, culture, artistic activities, tourism, and culture art activities as viewers and watching sports games. Or senior citizens participate in sports activities a lot, mostly people in their 40s and people in their 60s are doing a lot more of the social activities, and the citizens in their 70s actually participate in social activities quite a lot. So sports, watching sports games or would be more passive activities, but you can see here that senior citizens are enjoying more active spare time activities. So there is a phrase called active seniors. So that's a new trend among the senior population. Now I'm going to talk about what kind of efforts our university is making. If you see the current status of the vocational upskilling education, we are providing the supplementary education for nursing teachers and supplementary education for cultural interpreters. Also, we are utilizing 3D printers and laser cutting machine for creating something. We also focuses on various courses. So our education has moved away from hobby-focused activities. So senior citizens are focused more on the new vocations or new employment. Of course, number 4, it talks about the personal color consulting, and this is actually targeting high school students in their last year of a school, but the parents could join the course as well. So this is also part of the vocational skill education. Next, the local government is consigning education to us. So let's see the status in 2020 and 2021. Actually, last year with the COVID-19 pandemic, and the number of consigned courses increased last year because we had already set the budget for last year. But entering 2021, the number of courses decreased because the COVID was prolonged. I believe the amount of budget declined. I'm explaining this to tell you that despite the COVID-19, we are currently offering 16 courses. We offered 16 courses last year. This year, I believe with the new budget agreement, we can offer 10 courses. With the pandemic, we operated online courses. About 80% was online and the 20% was offline. Why we offered offline courses despite the pandemic? It was because senior citizens find it difficult to join the online courses. So we complied strictly with the anti-COVID measures and offered offline courses as well. Entering 2021, we expanded the online courses, so that was the way of offering courses for us. I'm going to talk about this more later. Next, let me talk more about the examples. The current status of senior courses. So in 2021, we offered life cycle, lifelong education. So silver power healthy food, dance meditation with a brain science, and creating a flower tea, and a vocal course, and a cooking. It could be a bit unfamiliar programs, but it is courses that we could offer at a local level, and it actually had a lot of positive feedback. So you can see that seniors are engaged in different activities compared to the before, and with this they want to upgrade their self-esteem, also their cognitive ability. So these were programs that were designed for that. Everyone had to wear the masks, and they danced for meditation, which is related to brain science, and the average age of the students were in their 60s. We are offering this course even now, and we have a qualification course for dementia prevention manager, and the students were in their 60s on average, and many students had their parents with dementia, so they felt rewarded knowing that they can care for their parents and get the qualification as well. From last year, we started a senior model basic course. This was the first course that our university provided in Incheon region. First, it was a cultural or hobby course. Now, although working as amateur, the senior students are actually getting a new job through this course. In 2021, we had another consigned education course. So the healthy food, Silver Power Healthy Food course was offered, not just in Korea, but globally. This is an issue which is a lifelong education and health. You have to be healthy, and senior citizens especially should be healthy to get a lifelong education and or pursue re-employment. So we offered in-depth education. The average age of the students was in their 50s and 60s. This received a good positive feedbacks. And tea making, flower tea making was also for the health of senior citizens. We offered classical vocal class. And they are to complete this course soon because they have to sing in the class. This could be a sensitive issue in the COVID-19 era, but we complied with the anti-COVID measures. So senior citizens in their 50s, 60s, 70s, they are singing together, which used to be their dream, and I was so surprised to see how much of activities they want to do. So we also thought that Incheon Jeonning University should open up the platform for them to meet that demand. In 2020, we had a course to foster historical culture interpreters. So the regional teachers helped students to get a job or for a new employment. Bravo My Life was a customized program for the elderly and the middle-aged population. So this was a part of the project that we offered. In 2020, we had a consignment education programs connection with Yeonsugo. So we offered AI online education and photography education. Pandemic was something completely new to everyone. Almost all universities had to offer online course. And we thought that could be the development of education. But from last year, we also realized online education is possible. And we also thought about turning that crisis into opportunity. At first, Yeonsu District asked us to offer online education for senior citizens. So we thought about this together and came up with how to survive in the post-COVID-19 era through AI. Actually, senior citizens don't know how to use Zoom, and they didn't know how to come on online. So still, we taught them how to do it one by one, and how AI that was difficult to senior citizens can be utilized in their daily lives through this class. So the senior students who joined the class were in their 60s. In March this year, they started this course, and they are currently in the process of completing the course. So we offered the Zoom education, and the students were very satisfied. Also offline, another offline program was Our Village through embossing lens. It was targeting the senior citizens in Yeonsu area. So using their camera or mobile phone, citizens could be a photographer or even start to work as photographer. It was just a hobby in the beginning, but they got the opportunity for re-employment through the course. In 2019, we invited CEOs in the region, and we offered the cooking course and And we are currently recruiting the next round of students for the 10th course. So to represent a local community, the CEOs of SMEs should join the course, and I believe that companies in the region should participate in the education as well. So we should be able to communicate with them and form a network with them. So I believe that's a strength of Incheon Jeoneng University in connection with the local government. A customized project for the middle-aged and elderly students. We offered the Color for You program. This received a good feedback because it was about upgrading yourself and image making yourself. And this would allow the student to have more confidence in dealing with others. So this was a program that we had in connection with the local governments. I actually was a lecturer, so this stayed in my heart, and I remember this very well. What kind of role Jeonning University has played for the restart of seniors in the local community, and what kind of role it can do in the future? First of all, it should develop into a lifelong education university based on the consumers' needs to represent the local society. So I did a SWOT based analysis. First of all, we have a strength because we is the only university or college that has two different campuses in Dong District and Yeonsu District. And we have a know-how in lifelong education because two district has a high rate of senior citizens. Also, we have high public value and sense of duty. Of course, we have weaknesses as well. It's difficult to secure students because in Dong District, it is more difficult to secure students. So we are opening more courses in Yeonsu District targeting senior citizens. So that's why we want to ask Yeonsu District to cooperate with us more and increase the budget more. Also, the online content and online system and LMS is a bit insufficient because we have all of this system mainly for our students at the university. So I believe we have to expand this system and network more. When it comes to opportunities, in terms of the social economic side, we can take the leading role in discovering new facilitation project, and we have to speed up our efforts to create the synergy between the education and the lifelong education. For risk, I believe this is a risk for all universities, not just us. With the low birth rate and aging population, there should be systematic PM for senior citizens. We have to also increase the number of hours of working throughout the lifespan because there is a need for re-employment. So we should develop a lot more programs for their needs, and that's where the local community and university can cooperate with each other. Based on this SWOT analysis, we realized that we have to offer a specialized program going beyond the limitations of time and space. We have to digitalize the education program so the senior citizens can join online courses. So there should be a virtual cycle between work, learning, and the life. So we have to discuss with the local community for coexistence. Secondly, through the lifelong education, there could be opportunities for re-employment. Even in the post-COVID-19 era, the online education would be an excellent education platform regardless of time and space. So I believe Incheon Jeoneng University should pursue this path. The person you are seeing in the picture is the lecturer, actually participant of the AI convergence department. He finished the PhD course and re-entered the university this year, and he even became a lecturer targeting the students. So he joined the cultural course at our university. He was a student in the beginning. He has become a lecturer at our college now. Third, we have reopened the new re-employment department, which is a future startup department for adult learners. when senior citizens join the courses, the tuition fees are mostly free, and we offer some scholarships for adult learners as well. So it's a project part of the partly supported by the Ministry of Education. So we received about 1 billion sponsorship as well from the ministry. So we have a cooking and welfare care department so that the senior citizens can get a job after retirement. It is a joke, but we say that the youth is until 65. So we, as a university, should support youth for their continued work. Fourth, we established a new lifelong education model in a stronger network with the academy and industry and the government and citizens. We are currently focusing on creating new jobs for senior citizens. People say the labor force is lacking regardless of the age, and for software jobs, the wage is actually quite high. So as long as they want, I believe they can get a new job. Lastly, in a response to the fourth industrial revolution, we should establish AI lifelong education system and lifelong education system as well. So we have to open a way or path for senior citizens to restart or restart their lives. And I believe with the cooperation with the local community, we can create a successful model. So this should be the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.
이주미 교수님
Thank you,
감사드립니다.
Professor Izumi.
특히 재능대학이
Incheon Chening University
진행하고 있는 다양한
is
지역의
currently
시니어들에서
offering various
평생 교육
lifelong
관련된
education
프로그램들을 잘
programs
소개해
targeting senior citizens. So that was well explained
더불어서
in the
아마
presentation.
재능대학의 홍보도
Also, she
상당히
promoted or
여러 가지
Chening
앞으로
University quite a lot.
계획하고 계시는 사업들에
There are various programs offered by Chening University, and I hope that Yeonsu can cooperate and with you as well. Thank you very much.
And now we have our last presenter from Incheon National University, Professor Yong-ho Park. Yes, as I've been introduced, I am Yong-ho Park, Professor of Creative HR Development at College of Social Sciences at Incheon University. So our university is divided into, so at Yeonsu-gu, we have presenters from the 4 universities that are affiliated with Songbo, and I believe that's why I have been selected as one of the 4 presenters today. So during our preparation for this conference, we talked to ourselves, well, I don't have much to say. I think 5 minutes is enough for me. That's what they said, but I didn't believe what they said because I know that they had great content and rich content, and this was a valuable opportunity to hear about their experiences. Today, my presentation will focus on the real-life examples and also how the universities can provide lifelong education. My title is Universities Community-Based Lifelong Education Program, focusing on our university's case of Triversity program. So first of all, I would like to talk about how tertiary education is changing and if it should change in relation to lifelong learning. Today, we have expanded opportunities of education, and now more people are voicing the need for universities that are adult-friendly. And one of the most important factors here is the demographic structure is changing, as we heard from the previous presentation. So in providing lifelong education, universities shouldn't feel forced to do it. They shouldn't feel forced to do it because we're living at a time and age when the universities now have to provide lifelong education against the backdrop of the demographic changes. And this is something that we hear a lot, not just in Korea, but in overseas conferences as well. But in Korea, we have fast aging, and so we really need to maybe restructure the quota of universities because high school graduates may not be enough to actually fill up the quota in the universities in Korea. Therefore, we need a model to operate universities in an adult-friendly way. and we need to develop such models of a
근데
university.
이미 이제 우리 그 인구 구조가
Our
변화하면서도
demographic structure is changing.
죄송합니다.
Excuse me?
네, 인구 구조가
So our
변화하면서요. 예,
demographic
근데
structure has
성장특별수사 같은
changed.
경우도
And in
지금
terms
이게
of the
굉장히 많이 이제
attainment
그
rate
변화가
of
좀
the academic
사실은 있는
background,
거죠.
we
예,
also
그래서
see a lot
근데
of
어떻게 보면은
changes.
우리가 고등교육을 받는 대표적인 그 집단이
So if you think
굉장히
about the
젊은
groups that are
층들로
subject to
고등교육을
tertiary
많이 받아왔다는
education,
겁니다. 그래서 이제 고교가
it's
한
always been the younger
학자도
people who have
지금
attained
2019년도 나온
tertiary
데이터를
education.
보면은 이제
According to
89%로 지금
2019
증가를 했는 거죠.
data,
그다음에 고등교육의
the
숫자는 지금
people with a high school
95년도에서
diploma or more account for
18%였는데
89% of
2019년도 50%로
those between
증가했습니다.
25 to
근데
64 years old, and those who have attained
고등교육자들의
tertiary
그
education now accounts for
세대가 차이가
50%
굉장히 큽니다.
of the adults.
그래서
And actually, if you look
주로
at the
그
people who have attained
연령대가
tertiary
낮은
education, there is actually
분들의
a big generational
고등교육률이
gap.
굉장히 지금
And
크다라고 이제
it's
볼 수가
usually
있을
the
것 같습니다.
younger people in our
그 이제
society who
이게
have attained
보면
tertiary
국민
education
고등교육의
rather than the senior
합력적인
people.
수준을 이렇게 가는데요. 이제는
And
한
if you
50%
look
정도가
here,
고등교육을
now
받아왔다는
about
거죠. 그러면은
50% of
급격하게
the
지금 이제
adults have attained
증가를 하고
tertiary
있습니다.
education, and
이게
this
잘 안
tertiary
보일
education
수도 있는데요.
attainment
지금
is
여기
rising
보면
quite
이
fast. If you
연령대가
look here,
25세에서 34세가
people
고등교육을
aged between
지금
25
받고
to
있는 상황을
44,
보여주는
sorry,
건데, 이
25 to
녹색 그래프가 지금
34
고등교육을
have
얼마나
the following
받아왔는지,
ratio of
그
tertiary
고등교육을
degrees.
받은
So the
그
green color shows
퍼센테이지를
the
얘기하는
percentage
겁니다.
of
한
people aged
틀리네요.
25 to
예,
34
다른 나라에
with
비해서.
tertiary degree.
근데 이제
And as you can see,
이것이
Korea has a
향후에
higher percentage
얼만큼
compared to the other countries in
이제
terms of
받을 수 있을
tertiary
것인가와
education
관련된
attainment
그
rate.
예상치도 점점
And
높아지고
as you can see, the prospects
그
for
차이가 굉장히
the
지금
expected
있다라는 거죠.
percentage is also
그다음에 이
rising,
고등 직업
which
교육의
means more and more
현황 같은
people will
경우도
attain tertiary
우리가 보면
education. And if
특별히
you look
그
here,
석사 과정이나 박사
people with a
과정의
master's
참여율은
degree or
상대적으로
a
낮습니다.
doctoral
근데
degree, well, the
일반적으로
rate of
그냥
these
그
people is
학부모층,
relatively
예,
lower.
이런 그
However,
배출러
people with a
디그리를 갖는
bachelor's
분들의
degree
비율이 굉장히 다른 나라에 비해서 지금
is so
높다라고
much higher
이제
compared to the other
보여집니다.
countries.
이제 그런데도 불구하고 우리가 중장년층을
And
대상으로
against this
고등교육이 얼마나 되고
backdrop, we
있는가라고
have
하는
to
것을
look at
보면
tertiary
아직은
education
좀
attainment
갈등이
rate
좀
among
많이 남아
middle-aged and senior
있다라고
age
이제
groups. Well, we
볼
still
수가
have a long
있습니다.
way to go
그래서
there because there are still a lot of middle-aged and
그
senior
세대
people
간의
who have
격차가
not
좀
attained
커집니다.
tertiary
우리가
education. So this
말씀드린
illustrates the
세대
generational
간의
gap that I
격차를
talked about
생각을
earlier.
해보면
There is a big generation gap
우리가
in
조금
terms of the
세대를
tertiary
조금
education attainment between the younger people
살펴보면
as opposed
예를
to the older
들면 지금
people.
취업이나
For example,
창업을
if you think
통해서
about
제2의 인생을 살려고 하는
people who want to get a
40대 인생의
re-employment
전환점이
or people who want to
아니었는가.
start
그다음에
a new
뭐 60대
business
같은
in their
경우는
40s, they're trying to start a new chapter in their life, like a second chapter in their life. And then there's
단순히
another turning
그
point further down
플레이라는
in
얘기를
life
하는 것 같습니다.
where
그러니까
people want
레저
to
플레이만을 얘기하는 게 아니고
enjoy an
새로운
abundant
어떤
retirement.
삶의 어떤
And by an
진출이라든지
abundant retirement, this does
새로운
not just
직업을
mean
가지려고 한다라든지
playing all the
아까 전에
time.
우리 이수미
This could be
교수님께서도 이
about
사례들을
exploring a
많이
new career
말씀을
opportunity
해주셨는데
or
이런
starting something
그
completely
시니어
new in your
층에서라고
life.
하는
So we
그
need to
많은
actually
그런
consider the
직업訓練
needs of these
센터들이
senior
이루어지고
people,
있다라는 것도
and we need to provide more
지금
vocational
벌써 한
training for the
10년,
senior
20년 전에
population.
대학의 평생교육 혹은
So if you think about lifelong
시니어들을
education 10
대상으로 하는
years and 20 years ago,
평생교육의 아예
and
컨셉 자체가
today,
아예 패러다임
we
자체가
have a
바뀌었습니다.
completely different paradigm of life learning
그래서
because we have a lot of
그
these senior
60대에서도
people
또
with
한
the
번의 또
demand
삶의
for
전환이
lifelong
일어나는 게
education.
아닌가 이제 그런 생각이
So you
듭니다.
have
그래서
two turning points in
세대를
your life, I
아우르는
think. So you have a turning point when
모듈들이
you're in
제공이 되고
40s. You
있기도
have
하고
another turning point when you're in your
대학이라고
60s.
하는
So
것은
we
되게
need universities
공식성을
to
기반으로
provide
하고 있지
education across
않습니까?
all
그래서
generations.
대학이
And also, a
한정적인 어떤
university is
대회들에
public in nature.
필요하지
So
않을까
universities do
그런
need to
생각이
offer
듭니다.
educational opportunities
전통적으로
for the
대학은
adults.
20대의 학습자들이 전통적인
Traditionally, the universities
학습자들이죠.
targeted the
그러니까
traditional
트레이닝
learners in their
학습자들이라고 얘기를
20s.
하잖아요.
So
근데
those would be the
그런
traditional
학습자들도 분명히
students.
있습니다.
But there are also
전문가로서 성장하려고
people
하는
who want to learn in
학습자들이
their
20대
40s,
학습자는
people who want to
우리
grow into
인생을
experts,
희망하는
people who want
학습자들이
to open a new
있죠. 그래서
chapter in
이게
their life. And
저희
also, we have
후대에서 약
people who want
한
to learn in their 60s as
5,
well.
6년 전에
If
이런
you think
그
about 5 to
많이
6
만들어
years
놓으신
ago, we
모델을 좀
created these
정리를 좀
concepts and we
하고
created these
사업을 진행을
models,
하고 있는데
and we
성적인
have
서비스를 제공하는
been
대학의
striving to
모델이 필요하지
provide
않을까.
this
그래서
new
저 세
education
가지
service which
세대별
spans all
그
generations.
학습자들을 구분을
So
하고
these
그다음에
three
유니버시티
generations should
트라이
be
그래서 유니버시티 그
categorized, and
트라이어시티라는
we need
개념을
a so-called
지금
tri-university model, which covers
만들고
all
그거를
three
이제
generations.
연구하고 이제
And
운영을
we are
지금
doing
하고 있습니다.
research and development as well as
그
actual
여기서
adoption of this
연계되는 근데 이제
triversity
이런
model.
그
When we are trying to offer education to not the traditional students, but the adult or the older students, we need a community-based lifelong education model. We need to first identify what they want to learn, what they want to study, and also we need to provide an educational system based on the socio-economic characteristics of the region. And we need to also offer a curriculum that's customized to the socio-economic characteristics. And also we need to consider the changes in the local community as well as the industries in the region. And therefore, considerations about the community should be one of the drivers behind designing education for the adults. Also, when you think about the adults, they usually are working and they have their own work and they have their own experiences and they have specific needs for specific capacity which could be harnessed for their work, and that should be taken into account when we design lifelong education for the adults. Earlier, Professor Lee, as well as Professor Yu, as well as Professor Kim gave a lot of examples about how the individuals can foster the capacities which could be harnessed for the community as well as for their work. And I think that's a good illustration of our future direction forward. And in terms of developing human resources for the community, we need to provide lifelong education. So we need to provide lifelong education which can be adapted to the different environments of the students so that we can foster them as human resources of the community. If you think about the government's lifelong education project, it's mostly focused on just achieving the degree. You have to take certain courses and then you get the degree. That usually seems to be the ultimate goal of lifelong education programs, but there's a limit to degree focused programs because there are people who cannot take multiple courses over multiple years, especially among the adult learners. So for those people, there could be limitations in the opportunities. Also, if you look at lifelong learning centers in different universities, most of the cases they are focused on humanities and liberal arts subjects. But actually, as you saw in the previous examples, they do have a need for vocational training or they need to develop capacities which allow them to open up new career opportunities. Therefore, we need to push the boundary and introduce new plans and strategies. Now, I would like to introduce our Triversity program here. So we have been funded by the government, and we design content that are based on issues of the community. So we have these different domains for general citizenship, public sector, micro enterprises, industry, university, cooperation, and online courses. And all the teachers are the full-time professors in our university. For example, in the domain of general citizenship, we give them finance academy or personal image making so that this could be helpful for individuals in general. And in the domain of public sector, we are mostly targeting people working in the public sector or people who are involved in public nature work. For example, we have a course on the future vision of Incheon, the maritime city, as well as the maritime culture. And for micro enterprises, we basically provide courses focused on the mom and pop stores. And in the industry university cooperation domain, we provide courses like an introduction to an intelligent system. So basically, the CEOs and owners of SMEs and smaller businesses can come to us and take these courses. And actually, all of these courses are offline and also they are free. However, amidst the pandemic, we cannot provide offline courses, and therefore, we do provide contactless formats. And also, we have online specific courses. And these online specific courses also belong to one of the four domains above. For example, there is a course on regional leaders and public HR development. And we have a graduate school for micro enterprises. This is not a graduate school which gives you a degree, but it's called a graduate degree. So in the on the premise of Incheon University, we have this school for micro enterprises, and we have designed education that's micro enterprise friendly. And recently, a news article was published on this school. So if you want to successfully run your business, you can take the course and get a lot of help and get a lot of networking. So the objective of the school is to foster leaders in micro enterprises as well as successful CEOs. That's just an example. So all of these content in lifelong learning are driven by community-based issues. And this is not a degree program, this is a non-degree program. The reason is because degree programs often take a long time and they're difficult to design. However, for ex- for example, for example, non-diploma programs, non-degree programs can be as short as 8 weeks long, and it's timely and it opens the door to more people. Also, we provide specialized content that's applicable in the labor market. We provide a mix of online and offline learning, and ultimately, we really want to foster human resources for our community. And we're a national university which serves our community, our local community. So we are not asking the students to bear any burden for these programs. We provide everything for free because we are a university that wants to serve the local community. And that's the objective of our education services. Now, we have had presentations from the four schools, and we really need to keep asking ourselves how we can better cooperate with the local community in providing our education. And I think that's been a message that you found through all the four presentations today. With that, I would like to conclude my
네,
presentation.
감사합니다.
Thank you so
박
much,
교수님.
Professor Park.
학령 인구가 줄고
School age
또
population is
고령화
decreasing in
사회로
Korea, and we're living in an
4차
aging
산업혁명이
society, and also we're living in the era
연상하면서
of the fourth industrial revolution.
대학의 역할이
And against this backdrop, the
변화할 수밖에
university's
없고
role will inevitably
변화된
change,
큰 방향은
and the transformation will,
평생
of course, be focused on
학습을
lifelong education,
확대하고
lifelong
강화하는
learning,
방향으로 갈 수밖에
stronger
없을
lifelong
것입니다.
learning. That's an
그런
inevitable
부분을
direction for
말씀해
all of
주시고
our
정리해 주셨습니다.
universities.
특히
And
인천대학교가 지금 현재
Incheon National
평생
University
교육에
currently has a strong focus on lifelong education, and it has introduced one of the most innovative models for lifelong education. And this project that he introduced received government funding, as he said, and this Triversity model was very meaningful for all of us. Thank you.
We have about 15 minutes left.
오늘 이 세션과 관련해서 관련된 질문을
We'd like to. We actually took questions regarding this session
질문을 좀 우리
so
패널 분들께
I'm gonna ask
드릴
these
텐데요.
questions to the
어느
panelists.
분이시든 좀그
So
답변을 하실 수 있는 분이
you can feel free to
대답을
answer to
답변해
these
주시면
questions.
좋겠습니다. 지금 이 우리 세션이 온라인으로도 중계가 되고 있는데
The session is also broadcasted online, so we didn't get any question from online, so I'm gonna ask the pre-collected questions. So we have to
부탁을 드리겠습니다.
consider that we have 50 minutes, so make your answer concise. The first question is
평생 학습에 미치는 영향은
what's the impact of the university's role in a lifelong education in a local community?
우리 교수님들은
The professors who can answer to these questions should think about the two keywords that we had today. Number one was lifelong education. Another one was lifelong learning. So one is education and the other is learning. But the grand theme today is the learning cities of UNESCO. So that's the concept that override the session. So maybe let's talk about the lifelong learning when you answer to this question. So the question was,
평생 교육에 어떤 영향을
what
줄수
kind of
있을까?
role can a university play to affect the regional lifelong learning? So, lifelong learning and lifelong education, when I talk about them, I often mix the two concepts. When we say lifelong education, it focuses more on the supplier side. When you say lifelong learning, it focuses more on the learner and the consumer. So these would be two different approaches and perspectives. In one sense, we are organizing conference on learning cities, and from the suppliers' side, it's about how we can systemize the learning cities and what kind of actors can come in to establish learning cities. I think we can deal with those issues. Still, what kind of things do adults want to learn? So what are the needs of adults? If we focus on that, there could be lifelong education and lifelong learning, and we should consider both to create true learning cities. When it comes to lifelong education or education or lifelong learning, scholars have different debates, and I think UNESCO tend to use lifelong education. So we should consider the two different approaches together. Same for the university's lifelong education. University is an educational institution. So it is an institution that systematizes something to offer that. And when we consider adult education or education targeting adults, we should consider the fields of life for adults. And they have a field of work that they are engaged in. And what are the needs of adults in those fields and what they want to learn in those fields. So we have to encompass all of that. So I believe there's a special quality of a university's lifelong education in that regard. For Korea, it's to do with how much will we open the door and how are we going to open the door is another important factor to consider. Listening to the professors, for instance, Professor Kim Bong-chul mentioned about intern-style university centers. So he mentioned about opening up a center for lifelong at a university level. And also there could be a project at a local level. Professor Izumi mentioned about department or diploma or lifelong education at the university level. I mentioned about the research institute level project funded by the government. So how are we going to open up the door of a university? In what form? So there could be different varieties. So depending on cases, we should follow path A with A university, follow path B with B university. So we have to seek for different methods together.
예, 박 교수님 감사합니다.
Thank you,
관련된
Professor.
질문인데
And I have another question in a similar context.
평생 교육이든 평생
Whether it's lifelong learning or lifelong education,
이제는 지역 사회 혹은
now these concepts have to really have a strong cooperation and connection with the local community as well as the municipality. So what could be potential ways to bring about this cooperation? Earlier, during Professor Lee's presentation, we heard about various lifelong learning programs consigned by the municipality. So in order for the university and municipality to work together for lifelong education, what could be our potential ways to explore?
답변을 부탁드리겠습니다.
네, 예, 제가
Yes,
말씀을
I would like to
드리겠습니다.
answer that question.
사실 위탁 강좌가
Consigned courses and programs, I think, should be one of the ways that we should go for because, as Professor Park said, our university offers a lot of degree-based programs. But when we work with the municipality, one of the advantages is that there are certain courses that can only be offered in the context of Yeonsugu district, and also there are a lot of courses and curricula that are actually suggested by the district office rather than by the universities. And these curricula and courses suggested by the district offices are actually more focused on the demand side, that is the needs and issues that are faced by the learners. And so this is one of the reasons why I think we should have stronger consigned projects, and the municipality could also provide extensive budget and other support for the universities to offer these programs.
이것입니다.
Yes, thank you very much, Professor Lee.
우리 교육부가 지금 여러
Our
가지
Ministry of
사회
Education
변화에 부응하기 위해서
is responding to various changes in our society
큰 방향을
by supporting the
시사적인
universities in
힘으로
different ways. And I think
제안합니다.
the Ministry of Education proposed about 3 different methods of supporting the universities, and the universities can choose the kind of support that they would like to receive from the government. So, for example, the Ministry of the Ministry of Education announced a plan for innovation of universities. And one way is to become specialized universities. Number 2 is to become lifelong education universities. And there's one other branch of innovating the universities. So I think the government recognizes this strong need for universities to actually strengthen and boost lifelong education. And therefore, when the university wants to take this branch of innovation, then the government promises that it will provide full-hearted support.
세 번째 질문인데요.
And we have a third question now.
학습 체계 구축에
In building lifelong learning system,
비해서
what is the differentiated advantage of universities compared to other entities?
를 답변을 좀 부탁을 드리겠습니다.
네. 제가
Yes,
생각할
I
때
think
대학교에는 굉장히 많은 학과가
in universities there are so many different majors, so many different departments, and there are a lot of people who can supply the education services. Therefore, when we use the university infrastructure and its resources, then it's a great asset for us to use for lifelong education. We are all from different schools with different specialties and different majors. And while we were preparing for this session, we actually said that we should do something together. And that is in line with co-work, convergence, and other keywords of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. So in the Fourth Industrial Revolution, it's all about interdisciplinary work and cooperation. And I think that could also be applied in the domain of lifelong education to provide high-quality education that can satisfy the demand side.
임 교수님 감사드립니다.
Thank you.
마지막 질문입니다.
And we have our last question.
지금 구청장님이 오셨으면 좋았을 텐데.
I wish the head of the district office was here with us.
우리 지역의 평생 학
So, for lifelong education in the district, especially focusing on Yeonsugu district, which is hosting this major international conference of UNESCO, what would be the role of Yeonsugu district for lifelong learning and education, so that the head of our district office would be able to reflect that on his future plans and strategies? I'm sure that we have members from the district office right here in person, so if you could
홍철 교수님 좀 부탁드립니다.
answer the question, please.
한 말씀
So let me say something about that.
보면 우리 그 대한민국 국민들
These days,
참그 현명하시고 스마트
Korean people, of course, wise and smart.
개발도상국의 그
We used to be a developing country and we had to speed up for development at the time.
습득해서
We acquired a lot of information from developed countries
그 기능을
So we gave a lot of functions to education in the process. If we consider what we can do in the international society these days and what is the role of the Republic of Korea, we actually get a lot of questions regarding this issue. As the main actor of learning, the Korean people are receiving education and utilize that in a domestic society. And I believe that is also possible in the international society. For instance, Incheon Chening University has a lot of makeup or beauty classes, and the student who can take the course and they can go to different countries and offer education. So not a learner, but the teachers. So they can become a lecturer or a teacher, or they can offer education. ODA can be utilized as we provide that at the government level. And for the public diplomatic affairs, I think that could offer great value for the country as well. So the learner can become a teacher and they can go to international society and they can offer what they've learned as a supplier of education. I think in other words, that could be related to the concept of global citizenship because they are actually practicing the global citizenship. Yeonsu district has its own characteristics. It's an international area, unlike other districts in Incheon, and Yeonsu is changing fast. So, in that sense, in the international society, Yeonsu in Incheon of the Republic of Korea can be the most internationalized region, and it can turn the learner into teachers, and Yeonsu district can be the hub of practicing that process, and I believe it will be feasible. And if the local government can lay the foundation to build a basis for that, then I believe the UNESCO will be satisfied to see the development of the learning city. Okay. Just to add, so the discussion actually went in a reversed order, but we didn't actually intend to do that. But to add, I believe the connection between university and the local community is important, but we have the several universities within Yeonsu region. So some universities have their main campus in Songdo, and there are other sub-campuses of different universities. There's no region like this where intensive number of universities have their campus in this region. So Yeonsu has its own features and unique characteristics, and it can cooperate with university a lot. Of course, the connection between a local community and university is important, but while preparing for this event, I also felt that there should be cooperation among universities within us, and that's extremely important. Each university has different characteristics, different strengths. So when we connect those together and connect that again with the region and local community, it can create great synergies. I hope that this conference will be a good starting point, and I believe it has laid the foundation for that to sure.
박 교수님 감사합니다.
Thank you very much, Professor Park.
그 구청장님께 좀 전달해 주십시오.
I hope that you can deliver that to the head of the district.
그 컨벤시아도 있긴 하지만
Yeonsu has this venue, Conventia.
있었고
There used to be industrial complex, also
학습도시 인천에
UNESCO's a learning city. One of the learning cities is Incheon, and Yeonsu is now the host city of the event this year. So it is an important region.
박용호 교수님께서
As
말씀하셨듯이
Professor Park mentioned,
연수구 내에 있는 대학들을
within Yeonsu district there are many universities. So if we can connect those universities and if they can cooperate with each other,
또 나아가서 인천에 평생교육과
there could be lifelong learning or lifelong education
재정적, 행정적 지원
um,
만들어
among those universities, if there can be fiscal or administrative support measures for that, and then Yeonsu can join that program as well, then I hope that that would be a desirable way to go. And I hope that the Yeonsu district can establish a good foundation to that end. So please tell that to the head of the district. I am a professor of political diplomacy, so I am not familiar with this sector. But before this conference, we had a preparation meeting on Zoom. But listening to presentations today, I have learned a lot myself. This is a regional issue and also the issue for the university. So I've learned a lot through this meeting. And I hope that with this meeting, Yeonsu district will rise as the mecca for the lifelong education and lifelong learning. So we hope the support from the local government in Yeonsu district. So this would be the end of the session. Now the MC will take the floor. Thank you very much, all the speakers and the moderator for presentation and for the session. The session was about the lifelong learning based on the local community and the universities. That was an insightful discussion we had. This would be the end of the university session. We'll have a lunch break and meet again at 3 p.m. in Korean time. We'll meet you again with a parallel thematic forum. So I'll see you again at 3 o'clock. Thank you very much and enjoy your lunch.
Recording stopped.